It's early January, and CommuniLux's, which is a section of InProduction, is a custom scenic fabrication company based in Dallas, Texas. And we're here talking today to Will Long. Thank you for being here, Will.
My pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Yes, and Allan Kahn, who runs the division. Thanks for being here, Allan.
Hey, happy to be here. Thanks so much for having us.
Yeah, but it's so exciting because what we've learned that some data's come out about 2022 and some projections for 2023, and we're going to see more and more customization for pretty much everything everyone does, which, because I'm in marketing, I also can totally say that it makes sense, because the marketing dollars that used to be spent doing print ads and magazines, things like that, are dead. So what you want to do is make sure your brand shows up, because we all know someone needs to see a brand 7 times to be able to register it as something they care about. And so presenting that brand is so much more interesting, etc. Now, InProduction is one of the biggest seating and building solutions for major events out there, doing huge VIP tenting for things at the golf tournaments. I mean, and that branding, you'll see it. You'll see the VIP tent, or you'll see the VIP section at the Kentucky Derby, and that brand sitting on that wall behind it's become more and more important. So it's not surprising that this will be a great discussion for us when we realize that what you do, which is to customize that brand and place it in the particular environment that they're going to be spending substantial dollars for, either sponsoring or entertaining or whatever. It's a moment in time. So congratulations for being on the cutting edge of what's important for the year 2023. So I want to start with you, Will. What are you seeing? What are people asking for? And how are you approaching this a little bit differently than you might have a few years ago?
So a lot of our clients are coming to us, especially in the golf world and the large events where they're doing tents and structures. They want to customize the space and make it look unique and make it look high end. That's probably the biggest thing that we're seeing now, is the trend on higher end finishes, the kind of finishes you'd see in maybe a really high end store or office building. So we're finding the clients coming to us looking for walls to either mask what the tent is, so that when you walk inside the tent, they've even done it even on the outside of the tent, so when you walk up to it, it doesn't look like a tent, it actually looks like a building. But when you walk inside this tent or structure, you've got hard walls that mimic an actual building. And then we're doing things. We just recently had a client that we worked with for CES, where we built walls and storefront glass walls inside in the space, so that they had conference rooms like you would see in a big office building, again, with the high-end finishes and just the hard ceilings and things like that. So it just looks more like you're walking into a permanent building.
What you're talking about is, you're talking about some of the luxury brands that are hiring you to bring these in. But if you were Stuckey's, the new pecan place that's taking off across the country, I'm not sure they would be necessarily looking for a high end. I think really what they're looking for is whatever's represent the brand that they're in place in. But the stuff you're referring to is much more in the luxury brand arena, right?
Yes. But even some of our clients that want to have it more of their brand, yes, they'll use graphics and brand the space so that it is got their name all over it. But we'll even build scenic pieces, 3D pieces that are really an experiential type environment. So it's more than just a picture or wording on the wall. It's actual spaces that give you a completely different feel.
Well, Allan, I want to move to you for a second. In this world of green matters and taking up space in the global climate environment matters, and every single event is different, what are you finding in terms of being able to adapt your product so that A, is maybe versatile and can be used elsewhere? B, are you do you house these things in case they want them next year for something else? How are you approaching the proper use of the tools and and things that are needed to build this type of stuff?
Yeah, that's a great question, and that's actually part of our bidding process. Increasingly, is all about what do we do with what we're building after it's done. So we're getting a lot of questions around disposal, recycling, reuse as kind of a key part of the conversation. So the strategy we approach is takes a couple of different facets depending on what we're building. So if it's an asset we can reuse over multiple runs, we've got several customers that engage us for an entire year's worth of events, so they don't have to create a new disposable asset. They can carry that brand consistency all across the country, all across all their activations, and then you're being a really good steward of those resources. In addition to that, we have several customers where they look at sort of sustainable products in the build and design phase. So they're interested in how can you make this out of sort of fancy Lincoln logs, if you will, from the back or sort of behind the scenes, and then really
Stucky should be hearing this, right?
Yeah. And then you really are applying a high-end finish on the front side so that you minimize the single-use materials that you have there. Every project that we build and it goes out the door, once it comes back, gets looked at for reusability. So can we, cut things out of the frame and reuse them on another project? Or it gets looked at from a recycling perspective. So we try to build things out of materials that are accepted by our local recyclers here in Dallas that we know will go to the right sort of green cycle component, because so much of what we build and so much of the event industry is designed to be disposable that we'd be bad stewards of our natural resources if we didn't take that approach.
Something I've wanted to ask, but I've never had anybody to ask until now, is can you figure out the print footprint, and how does one figure that out?
The print footprint?
The footprint environmentally for whatever you produce.
Ooh, that's a great question. I don't know that we have that, right out of our fingertips. It is something that we should probably explore.
I honestly, no, I know that there's a lot that goes into calculating carbon footprints, and we don't currently have that as a readily accessible resource.
Right. Well, I mean, that's certainly something coming down the pike, but actually it's a great business for somebody to go into, right? We'll figure that out for you. But I know brands more and more, because their clients and their customers are caring more and more. And while you have to respond to the customer desires and needs. Now, on the homepage, CommuniLux's.com, if you've never been there, you got to go. There's this amazing picture, Will, of, is it Facebook's headquarters? What is it?
It was for a CES event. I believe it was 2020.
Not everybody knows what CES stands for.
A Consumer Electronics Show. So
okay.
It's a big show that happens in Vegas at the beginning of every year, minus, of course, COVID years. But we built that. It's interesting that you talk about carbon footprint and reuse and recyclability. That particular project, when we built that, we were required to pick materials that didn't have plastic in them and were recycled products or had more environmentally friendly aspects to them to create that whole build. So it did create some challenges, and made us actually start looking at other resources and alternative materials to be able to give the client what they wanted, but still give them the look and keep it within budget.
Well, it's my, one of my favorite lines, and with my, strategy clients is sometimes more is just more, it's not better. And what I love about that image is the simplicity, and all I see is Facebook, and somehow it just looks, talk about luxury. It looks fabulous. It looks like something I want to participate in. And in this world that we're living in oversaturated information where you're just getting so much coming into your eyes, I thought, wow, what a great design. Now, my question is that I assume, because you have an entire section on the website that goes into how you do process, did they say to you, look, less is more here? Or did you just look at their brand? How do you approach when you put together that particular project for somebody? How do you assess what that design look is going to be? Because every single picture you've got in there what I have to say in looking at it is each one as a brand person is representing the brand. It is not representing, I can't see CommuniLux in any of them. What I see is the brand that you're representing. How do you approach that, Will? How do you begin that process?
So we're fortunate that majority of our clients already have a designer that they're working with. So we work with the designer to bring forth the look and image and feel that they are working towards based on their feedback from the client. And so we don't have to get into a lot of the detailed stuff and creativity on the marketing or branding side, because they've got a designer that's working on that. Our challenge is making sure that we can take and deliver that look that they're looking for, again, with the materials that they want to use, and keeping it within budget, and making sure that we're keeping all of those things that we're talking about, carbon footprint and such in mind, to give them the look that they're wanting.
Yeah, we know that, again, people are doing more and more branding as part of the events that they're participating in. Okay, that budget, though, in terms of branding as part of what they're spending at that event, where's that coming from? Are they just adding to their overall budgets, or are they pulling it from something else that is not as needed anymore? And I want to point out at this moment, and maybe actually, Allan, you might be able to address this. One of the things is these events and these branding opportunities are more and more hybrid, where it's bricks and mortar where people are attending, but also a lot of it's online. So the ability to reach a much larger audience from, somebody who I know who's head of certain special events at IBM, she said, "Are you kidding? My reach is so much larger that I got plenty of budget per person." So is that how people are approaching this now? How are we looking at this, and what should we be paying attention to there?
Yeah, so I think it's a kind of a mixture of both, right? So we are seeing an increase in budgets as a whole when you talk about sort of the event space. I know that there's a lot of forecasted numbers from people way smarter than I am in the consulting and data world that are estimating that the event industry is going to double within the next 5 years in North America. So there is
certain events.
Yes. So you are seeing a significant uplift in sort of, budgets for these events. As we continue to shift more towards a event and experience-based society where, especially in younger generations, you're seeing less passion about having the product and more passion about living that experience.
Well, I don't want to carry a bag with a name on it anymore. What I want to do is I want to attend something with my friends. Yeah.
Exactly. So that's leading to an uplift in a lot of budgets. You are also seeing a lot of shift towards, as sort of brick and mortar type of world continues to struggle as it does in kind of traditional selling avenues. You're seeing these businesses try to approach their relationships with their consumers in a much different way. And so direct sales, while it is a very powerful tool in terms of cost management and speed to customer and things of those nature, you do lose out on the ability to get your brand there because there is a Nike store on every corner, right? So as these businesses have had to kind of shift their approach, there has been a focus on how else do we drive brand recognition and relationships in a different way. It's not about Nike makes good shoes. It is about Nike cares about the things I care about, to use as an example.
Okay, good example. Interesting. Will, favorite thing to work in? Also would, maybe?
It's hard to pick one.
But if you were going to build something for CommuniLux, what would you build? And you had no budget, you could build anything. What would you build in it?
Again, it's hard for me to pick one. There's so many different mediums that we work in with materials, and they all have their unique characteristics that make them fun to work with and give you certain looks.
Give me a couple.
Okay. If I want to say, I personally, we don't do a lot of it, but I'd like the foam carving and building of more 3D elements using foam carving and hard coating and stuff like that. I mean, that to me would be a fun thing to do. And maybe I think it's fun because we don't do a lot of it on our end. Maybe if we did a lot of it, I might have a different thought process on it. But yes.
Oh, and that sounds cool. Yeah, I mean, I haven't thought about it, but also it seems like that would be easier to transport. Everything would be a little lighter, so to speak. Hate to use the pun, but
well, it's funny because the foams that we would be using and the stuff that we do use when we're making letters and things for large logos is actually a heavy foam. It's 15-pound or 30-pound foam, so it's actually heavier than some of the other materials that we've used before. And then transport, because it is foam, you have to take more things into consideration. So sometimes it's not as easy as you might think it would be. But generally speaking, yes, I would say that's probably true.
What about you, Allan? What do you see as a cool thing in the future that's emerging and what you guys are working on?
Oh, I love the use of 3D printing for prototyping. That is hands down my favorite medium. The capabilities that it gives you in fast prototyping, and then in sort of getting a quick fit in place, getting it approved from your design team, and then kind of moving on to production is just, I think that now that 3D printing's hit the consumer market, it's going to continue to expand and become kind of the norm.
So in 5 years, do you see it taking a much bigger piece of the marketplace?
Absolutely, yes. It's too prevalent already from a home use perspective. There are numerous websites out there that are all about, fast prototyping of designs and components, and it gives you such flexibility to think three-dimensionally without having to worry about, like Will mentioned, some of the sort of physical restraints of needing to keep foam really carefully packed. It's a durable material.
Great. Well, thank you guys. We try to keep these around 15 minutes. That's exactly where we are. If you haven't been to the CommuniLux's website, go. InProduction, what we're known for is so large that sometimes you're like waving behind saying, hey, we're here. The work you're doing is incredible. And I will say that I work with a number of production companies out of New York, and your reputation is stellar, and it's not Texas-based. So so do take a look and see what you can see. And thanks for your information.
Thanks so much, Christine.
Thank you for having us.